So we're going to take a look at Abraham's pilgrimage. Remember I told you that Moses and Joshua, Abraham was called to the same pilgrimage that Moses and Joshua were. Same words. Arise, walk through the length and breadth of the land, wherever the soles of your feet shall tread, that shall I give unto you. Moses and Joshua were called on a pilgrimage to Mount Sinai in Arabia. What about Abraham? He was called on this pilgrimage. Yeah? Where did he go? Quick, what was the mountain where he sacrificed Isaac, or took him up to sacrifice? Mount Moriah. Nope. It's not what the Bible says. The Bible says that he names the mountain as it is seen to this day in Har Yahweh, which is Hebrew, the mountain of God. It said, arise and go into the land of Moriah. That's where the name comes from. Reasonable conjecture. But the land of Moriah means the land of the master. Moriah means the master. Go into the land of Yahweh, to a mountain which I will show you. He gets there. He does the deal. Yahweh stays his hand and says, this type of abomination will never happen to my people. I think it was a very effective teaching moment. So, he sets up an altar and says it can be seen to this day in Har Yahweh, right? I'm offering you a door to faith here. Be careful, some doors, you can't go back. So, you missed that one, so I'm going to give you a chance for a makeup test. All right? It's an easy one. Real quick. What mountain did Moses go on to get the tablets of stone? What? Mountain of God. Okay, I'm going to give you half credit for that. As they're leaving the mountain and continuing on there, and the context absolutely certain in the Bible, they're leaving Mount Sinai, and it says they departed from Har Yahweh, the mount of the Lord. Okay, so I'm waiting to see if anybody is doing this thing. Let me see. Moses was on Har Yahweh. Didn't he just say that Abraham was on Har Yahweh? Moses was on Har Yahweh. Abraham was on Har Yahweh. That's the same mountain. Now, remember, I'm not saying this. This is in Scripture. Yeah. So you are presented with a door to faith here. You've never heard this from the pulpit. Am I right? Never. It doesn't fit the agenda of any of the churches. At all. Okay, but this is absolutely straight from the Bible, and I have no reason to suspect that it was in any way a mistranslation. And I'm going to show you, because there will always be backup. Then you're going to study the Scripture all around it to see if it backs it up. So this is what we got here. Yahweh's prophecy to Abraham. He prophesied the Exodus 400 years before it happened. He said, your seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them and afflict them for 400 years. I will judge that nation. And afterward they will come out, and they will come here. Where is here? Right. It's in Midian where he was living. It said he was living in Midian. It said he was living in between, what is the place where they enter? Kadesh and Shur. Shur is where they crossed the Red Sea into the wilderness of Shur, a stone throw from Mount Sinai, right directly even with it. So it's about a distance of 150 miles. Say, for example, he is living right in the middle. Arise and walk for 3 days, 25 miles a day, reasonable. They were tougher in those days. So he is living in the vicinity of Mount Sinai while Isaac was being raised up that whole time. He was living there between Kadesh and Shur. And he kept being drawn back to that mountain. 3 times he went back there, went back to that region. So he was living in the area within 3 days' walk of Mount Sinai. Oh, so it could happen, right? Yes? Nod your head yes? Shake your head no? All right, so let's talk about Hagar. Hagar's pilgrimage. All right, remember Hagar? You know, Sarah could not conceive, so she gave her handmaiden Hagar since, of course, she wasn't going to believe that ridiculous story the Lord said about her conceiving in her old age, right? So she gave the handmaiden, and Ishmael came into the world. And she then got apparently uppity, and Sarah kicked her out, and she fled into the wilderness, apparently on a pilgrimage for divine, I'm assuming this, divine connection. And the angel of the Lord found her. She found that divine connection she was looking for. And he found her where? By the fountain on the way to Shur. There is only one fountain of water in the wilderness, and that's the way it's described in the Bible, the fountain of water in the wilderness. And that is the split rock of Horeb, which ran whenever the Lord wanted it to run, apparently. And I have a map. I don't think I have the map up here. But there are only certain passages through the mountain. So if you're going to Shur, you've got to go right past the split rock at Horeb to get to Shur. I don't know if she's going to Shur. So they found the fountain, the pathway to Shur is where the split rock of Horeb is. I don't think she's going to Shur. I think she's going to Sinai. She's going to Horeb. Remember, Yahweh said to Moses, you cannot see my face, you cannot survive, you shall see my hinder part. Hagar to Yahweh, you saw me. Did I not also see the hinder part of him that saw me? The word is aher, which means after. So what does it mean when you look after someone? Looking at their back, their derriere, right? You're looking at their hinder part. It's the same word. The meaning of aher, it has another meaning. It means hinder part. Same word is used in the description of Moses seeing God and Hagar seeing God in the wilderness, having an encounter with the Lord in the wilderness, in which case he said, talk about prophetic words, Ishmael will be a father of nations. His hand will be raised against every man, and every man's hand will be raised against him. That's prophetic, is it not? Okay, so who else was at Har Yahweh, since we're talking about this? Who else was at Har Yahweh? And I think this list of celebrities is going to blow you away. Satan was there. Yahweh descended in fire and smoke on the mountain. Okay, Satan was there. You were perfect until iniquity was found in you. You were there upon the mountain of God, but I cast you out from the mountain of God as being profane. So Yahweh was there, and Satan was there. You know he'd be there. He's going to be there stirring it up with a stick. When Moses was up on the mountain, what was he doing down there? He's getting everybody to worship pagan gods. Didn't waste any time. Abraham and Isaac were there. It says that in Genesis 14. Guess who else was there? Hagar and Ishmael were there. And Moses? Well, Elijah first. Elijah had, and all these people are having encounters with the Lord and with the angels of the Lord. So Elijah has an encounter with the Lord, with the angel of the Lord, and on 40 days and nights he is fed spiritual food, goes on the sustenance of that for 40 days and nights, so he gets to Horeb where he has his encounter with the Lord in the cave at Sinai. There is no cave at the traditional site of Mount Sinai in the Sinai Peninsula. There is a great little cave in the Sinai site in Midian. Beautiful view. Beautiful view. And right above the cave at the top of the peak, there is a cleft in the rock. Along with Moses came a cast of hundreds of thousands. Joshua, Caleb, and the Israelites. And there's one more thing I'm counting, and that's Yeshua. Yeshua at the Mount of Transfiguration. This was definitely a divine revelation, right? We would all agree with that. So they did go up a mountain, but they were either transported, which is something that has happened in the Bible, or they were given a divine revelation that was at the mountain. And because who did they meet there? They met Elijah and Moses there. And they were talking about building a shrine or a cathedral for each one of them, for Yeshua, for Moses, and Elijah. So you don't talk about that when you're in a revelation. You talk about that when you're on a real mountain. So I believe that the Mount of Transfiguration had to do with Yeshua, Peter, John, and James either being transported or being given a divine revelation on the mountain. Paul also did not go to those who had come before him, but said he went into the deserts of Arabia to seek divine encounter. And then a few passages later, he says the location of Mount Sinai. This is one of the ways we know that it's in Arabia. He said Mount Sinai in Arabia. So Paul, I think, clearly went there. You can argue these if you want, that's fine. But I think it's not me. This is, Yahweh did this. He came to earth in a specific place, which would be a portal. And he drew the people that he chose to him to give them their marching orders. Does that sound reasonable to you? It's not my plan, it's his plan. It's not because I think it's cute. It's obviously a pattern he set up, and he did. Not only them, he swore a sacred oath to them. He made a covenant, and he swore an oath to them, and we're going to talk about that and how you can participate in that oath and that blessing. And he said, not only do I make this oath with those that stand here today before us, but also with him that is not here with us this day. Who would that be? Me and you, every one of you that is a follower of Yahweh, that believes in the sacred revelation from Mount Sinai, is in this covenant. You were all there. It includes all of us.